Hello everyone, want to show you the project that I was working on. It's a 8-sided birdhouse with a sheet metal roof, and it's designed to be mounted on a pole. There's a stake. This is kind of an iron stake that I spray painted black. This part gets bolted onto the bottom of a decorative post, and the birdhouse will get mounted on the top. The stake goes in the ground, and the birdhouse will get mounted on top, and the decorative top will be put in place and will sit in our backyard. Let me show you how I put it together. First of all, this little lightning rod thing comes off, and I'll put this down on the side. And the birdhouse is composed of 2 octagons and an insert. So let me take off the top. And I'll turn this over. And very simply, the wood is started out as an 18-inch square. So 4 sides that I cut off the angles to make the octagon. And then there's a 13¼ inch octagon, or a square that became an octagon, and I mounted the two together and glued them together, and I notched out a ridge here, which I'll show you in a second what that's for. But basically I got an 18-inch octagon and a 13¼ inch octagon, and inside the birdhouse you'll see an insert with a handle, and the handle fits into where that notch is. So if I lift up the handle, I have an insert. And the insert contains 16 different compartments for the birds to go through the different holes. So let me show you how I put this all together. We'll start with the insert. As I said, this was 13¼ This octagon was 13 inches. So slightly smaller than the base on which it stands. The base here has the same configuration as this, although without the notch. So if you look, there were 2 octagons, top and bottom. Once I cut them out, there's a center piece of 1/2-inch plywood that goes, you can see it from here straight there. And there's it goes all the way across, so the full length of from corner to corner. There's 4 dowels and 3 screws holding that piece of wood in place. Once I had the main cross beam, I was able to put the side pieces, so I had basically an X, and then for the interstitial pieces there's just 2 screws. And in some cases there's a false hole because I found voids in the cheaper plywood, so the screws didn't hold. And of course everything is glued and tight. The top was screwed on with screws and glue, and then the pieces here in the center is 3/4 inch plywood that were glued, and then you'll see, maybe you can see, there's some brads that hold it into place and secure it to the 1/2-inch plywood, and that gives me the insert. The top part was the outside was a little bit more difficult. Again, it's 3/4 inch plywood, 18 inches square, 13¼ inch octagon. So it's the same configuration of that without the notch. But the sides were actually a little bit tricky. So 4 of the sides, and maybe you could see it, I'll come down here, you'll see that they're cut on an angle, on a 45-degree angle. So there's 4 sides, 1, 2, 3, and 4 that are chamfered or angled like that. And then there are 4 sides that are flat. So once I cut them out and drill the holes, then those pieces, the angled pieces, got 2 dowels and 3 screws and some glue. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the pieces without the angles, I just screwed them in and glued. And 3 of the pieces actually went in fairly tight. One of them didn't and is a little loose. So we're gonna fill that up with some wood filler. Thank God for wood filler. The holes are 1 3/8. There's some dowels for the little pegs. And the inside, you'll see that there's a little gap for the straight pieces, but the angle pieces fit closely up to the octagon, the inner octagon. And those pieces are glued, actually all 8 pieces are glued, both on the larger octagon and on the side of the smaller octagon. So it's fairly tight. At the top, there's some brads holding the pieces in place, because this outer piece is like a cup. There's no support at the top to hold it together, because the insert fits inside of that, and then the cover goes on, and then this thing will sit on top of the pole. The metal piece, that sheet metal piece, will actually fit inside. This 18-inch octagon will fit inside the octagonal piece of the sheet metal. And in the original design, and I didn't copy this, I copied this design from an initial piece that got hit by a tree. But the sheet metal will fit inside this lip, and I may end up securing it somehow, either through some screws or some brads, so to secure the metal to the top, and then the top will fit in, and just the weight of it will hold it on top of the outside piece. The bottom is a little collar that I made, and here is a piece of that 4x4 that I cut off. Actually, it's a 3x3, and you'll see I made a little collar so that the piece fits in, and eventually this piece will be that piece. And there's just 6 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood that I cut a V out of. So here's a piece of 6-inch by 4-inch, and I cut a V out and then put 2 of them together and screwed them into the base. So that gives me a collar, and this piece will fit in like that. And then I will probably drill some sort of screw or some sort of attachment, maybe a dowel, and that'll go through the collar and then the upright and hold it in place, so it should be fairly secure. The project took about, well, a couple days. I'm not a very good carpenter, so my measurements were somewhat accurate, but not exact. I have an idea. If I do this again, I may change this angle so all of the pieces are angled. Maybe that'll give me a nicer fit. And I may end up using, because of all of the voids I found in the cheaper grade of plywood in the 1/2-inch pieces, I may use a better grade of plywood all around and see how the next one comes out. So what remains to be done is the holes. See, there's some holes. Nail holes and stuff need to be filled. The piece has already been sanded. It'll be painted, and it'll be mounted in our backyard along with the top, and we will have an 8-sided birdhouse. Then all we'll need is birds. Thanks a lot.